Hello, everybody. This is John Wydogen with Natural Freedom League. We're at naturalfreedomleague.com. Here, as always, with my producer and co-host, Chill Will Keller.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Good seeing you again.
And we also have a very inspirational person in the freedom movement, host of the Freedom Lovers Show. Catch him on Facebook, our boy, David Rodriguez. Hello, David.
Hey, John, Chill Will, man. Great to be with you guys tonight. Excited to discuss freedom and where the future of humanity might lie in this conversation with you guys tonight.
That's a good topic.
Yes.
We're ready.
Exactly.
I love it. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, definitely.
Seriously, man. Great to be here.
So jumping right in, first time I heard of you, I think was probably at a Health Freedom rally. I'm not sure which one, a few years back, I think you spoke. And then I started seeing you online. I think I saw you on the High Wire and you were talking about the homeschool. So that's where I kind of first knew you from, was your work with homeschool. And I was interested in did you know John Taylor Gatto? Kind of talk about who he was and what he did and how you came to publish his book.
So I came across John Taylor Gatto's work, I think through Alex Jones, as well as Charlotte Isserbit, and then also through Tragedy and Hope with Richard Grove and the folks over there. They did an epic 5-hour interview called the Ultimate History Lesson. And so John Taylor Gatto, for some of the new people out there, taught in public schools for 30 years, won the New York City Teacher of the Year Award 3 times and the New York State Teacher of the Year Award twice. And the reason is that the parents and the community vote on the Teacher of the Year, not the politicians. And so anyways, he got this really prominent awards towards the end of his career. And once I learned about what he was doing, he basically was exposing the history of the school system, the origins. Where did this mandatory compulsory school system come from? And I call it a day prison, and he called it a prison as well, for 12 years. And I started learning about him, and then I started looking at the libraries and the memorials and all the places around me. And I said, how come nobody has anything named after John Taylor Gatto? Man, he's one of the most epic teachers. He has amazing stuff online, like some of the interviews. One of the documentaries called Classrooms of the Heart, really in his classroom showing how he taught and the compassion he had and the respect he had for his 8th grade students. And so actually I reached out to him and I said, hey, John, I think I'd like to use your name for posterity because people need to know about you and what you've done. And so I reached out to him, and then he got back with me, and I flew out to New York. There was an education conference out there, and I went and met him. And this was actually after he had his stroke, but he's basically signed like a blank contract for me. He said, yeah, promote my stuff, go for it. And then his wife pulled me aside and said, hey, you want to help with the publishing of a book? And I said, all right. So I called back a couple weeks later, said, let's do it. Despite having no publishing experience, I just respect him. And I think one of the most powerful questions one of my mentors asked me is, what is your legacy going to be? And I said, well, I don't know. What does that mean? Can you tell me about that? He says, here's my suggestion. Find an injustice on the planet and spend your life trying to correct that injustice. And so I consider the government school system, the mandatory compulsory day prison for children from age 6 to age 18, one of the most diabolical and immoral criminal institutions on earth. So I said, how can I help? And so that's how I got into this kind of fight for education options. And that was my first event, started in 2014. And we did it, multiple years. And then I decided I want to do homeschool consulting. And there was a gentleman there by his name is Wes Beach. He taught me how to do accelerated graduations. And so long story short, I ended up getting the book published. This is the first volume, Underground History of American Education by John Taylor Gatto, forward by Ron Paul, afterward by Richard Grove. And I got 2 more volumes coming. And so I reached out to him. So it was like one of my first, probably maybe 3rd experiences in like reaching out to my mentor and getting that mentorship by reaching out. And this is why I promote apprenticeships and these types of relationships. So I reached out, and then we started that relationship in 2014. and I took over his social media stuff, and now I'm just promoting that. And we got some other things in the pipeline. The Gatto project is the next thing we'll have coming out. But it's really helping parents understand, why is it mandatory attendance policy at schools? Why do you have to get permission to go to the bathroom? Why do you got permission to drink? How come you can't take your kids on vacation when you want to go visit grandma somewhere? You got to get permission from the state. This is such an unacceptable organization, been going on for 100 years. And I just love his courage and his compassion for children. And, it's kind of like the torch has been passed on to me and some of the other great people out there speaking truth about the schools. It's not okay to force kids to go to school. It's not okay you mandate they read certain books. The future is about self-directed learning, also known as unschooling, and even a version called homeschooling. So I think compulsion or coercion is the enemy. And John Gatto was so clear about that. And he talked about voluntary schools as well. And I think that is going to be the future for kids. And any visionary parents out there, stop using coercion and threats and intimidation to get your kids. They want to become smart and intelligent and have a good life. You don't have to force that on them. And so one of the he has so many great quotes, but one of them is that an education should be as unique as your fingerprints. And some of the other quotes I stole from him and kind of modified was that the world is the classroom, and anything or anybody you can learn from can be a teacher. So those are some of the principles that I stand on with my homeschool stuff and even my private school, Valor Academy, where I do accelerated graduations, consulting for parents, for homeschool stuff, enrollment, and even apprenticeships, because it's not teaching kids what to think. It's teaching them how to think, question. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to say, where'd you get that information? And some of you guys out there, and maybe John and Will, if you went to public school, like, you're shunned for asking questions. No, sit down, shut up. No, that's not okay to treat kids this way. Kids are the most vulnerable. I should say children, young boys and young girls are the most vulnerable human beings on the planet. And it's not okay to use coercion against these young humans. So this is part of the, one of my purposes is to help start that conversation. And of course, you parents out there, raise your kids however you want. They're your offspring and your genes and your legacy. But I think anytime you use force against anybody, especially vulnerable children who depend on you for shelter, food, and protection, it's just immoral. And I think love is the real lesson that parents and any true educators would be helping their children and students learn.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, that's so powerful. What a crucial topic. Me being a homeschool parent, the educational system, the ostensible purpose that, parents really have to dig down and get that foundational information. John Taylor Gatto is an excellent place to start, to know where the education system, where it comes from, its origins, and its purpose. It's there to condition, indoctrinate, to mold the young minds. And there's nothing more important than young minds, the children. It's the future. So it's huge topic. So I commend you on that, man. That's awesome.
Hey, man, congratulations on being a homeschool parent, man. You're a visionary.
It's fun.
I'm not even joking, man. Homeschool fathers and mothers are visionaries. It is the way of the future, because this whole thing's falling apart, and they're just going to use more threats, more intimidation. Now we're in end of December 2020. The mandatory masks are going in schools. And of course, you see the horizon of mandatory tests and vaccines. And so now is the time, mom and dad, to gain the strength to pull your kids out. And that's what the Gatto project is all about. It's an acronym for John's last name, get all the thinkers out of forced schools. And I commend you too, man, for having the courage to pull your kids out of the state system.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's just pure creativity. It's awesome. It's definitely, even with everything that's going on right now, it hasn't skipped a beat for homeschooling parents, the majority of us, right? It's just, it's done at home. It's done in the world. We go out, especially if you're, you're stepping into true sovereignty and you're not just following the herd. But, my daughter's not being affected by what the emotional baggage that I'm bringing home from all the bullshit that's going on in society today. And that's what parents don't really see, that they're just, when you're living in a fear-based consciousness, you're just passing that on down to your kids. It affects them on a mental and emotional, spiritual level.
Yes.
Yeah. I was sitting here thinking, like what we've been doing is going out and getting information to people. And the more we talk to people, the more we know like different topics to add to the conversation. So, I mean, it'd be really cool to have some of your information out there for homeschooling, and just, that's another part of the discussion, like what we call it is the agenda against natural law, and, because that is what comes up when we're out there trying to tell people about like a voluntary world, a true anarchic world. They don't get it, and they have all these questions, but the education system is a good piece to add into that.
Yeah. And let me just give you quick pointers. Some of the parents out there thinking about homeschooling, and we can transition to the next topic here. But I define homeschooling when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. And then unschooling is 100% self-directed learning. That's the apex of learning. Just like us, we're talking, we're going to be learning a lot from each other, mutually, beneficial conversation. And some of the listeners out there, nobody's doing this for we're trying to get good grades in this conversation. We want to expand our knowledge, increase our consciousness, our awareness, our personal power. That's the benefit of learning. So you don't have to add carrots and all these rewards for, you read this, you do that, you need to get a carrot. Well, that works for a little while, but once they graduate or become an adult, then it's like, well, now who can I please? Well, think about pleasing yourself. Think about leading yourself, finding what you like to enjoy. And it's a lot easier to ask that question and pursue it from a young age. Like, what do I enjoy doing? What do I want to make my life purpose mean? And what are we doing here on planet Earth? Versus when you're 18, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to make money, you got to pay bills, got to get roof over my head. Then you're in panic mode. And so I really invite you parents out there to ask your kids the big questions, like where do we come from? Where are we going? What's going on here? What's the purpose of life? And all these big questions that I think we're so eager to explore and have the free time to do that, which we do as young people. But then as the adult life, now we got to take care of the shelter, food, and clothing type stuff. So anyways, those are just some of the key tips I can start with. And homeschooling is critical if we're going to transition out of the intergenerational organized crime syndicate called the state.
Right. And so what is the name of your academy, and where can we find it?
So it's Valor Academy. And I think we have an email capture at thevaloracademy.com. And we're also on Facebook and maybe on Instagram. But all those things are in works. If you want to do accelerated graduation for your teenager, you can message me. You can email me at drvisionary@protonmail.com, and I'll give you some of the details. But I've graduated 14-year-olds, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I've graduated 30-year-olds. Get you a high school diploma. So now you get that certificate, and there's a process that I go through, and it's all legitimate high school diploma. And Valor Academy is the name because valor, the inherent root is value. Your child's valuable the way they are right now. They don't have to jump through some hoops to be valuable. And then valor, synonymous with courage. If you're going to achieve any type of success or joy or satisfaction, fulfillment in this life, I think you're going to have to be courageous, have some valor. And we want to have that conversation with our young people, especially with the world that, they are inheriting from us. It's really significant that they realize, like, dude, I got to be brave in this world. It's like, yes, and we'll help you. You don't have to swallow an elephant in the beginning. Take baby steps of courage, and then we'll, kind of facilitate along the way. Also, because of the scamdemic, this is not homeschooling most people are experiencing. It is quarantine schooling. Most of the time, you can go to libraries, you go to grocery stores, barefaced, no masks, and nobody's afraid. Giving elbows and stuff like that. This is a crazy time, but it's definitely a lot better to be homeschooling right now than quarantine schooling, I should say, being the forced school system.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So you mentioned an earlier mentor. I was interested in who that was. And
well, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, started learning about residual income, passive income, and I got into health insurance, and this was a gentleman who owns a health insurance agency. I won't give his name just to keep him, I haven't got permission to give his name out here, but just out here in San Jose. And great man, and he kind of mentored me a little bit there. And then there's another mentor I have. All these mentors are people who I reached out to, whether I saw them in real life. That particular mentor, the health insurance guy, I was going business to business selling stuff in college. And because Robert Kiyosaki taught me that insurance is a way to build residual income, meaning you do something once and you get paid multiple times for that. So went to his insurance agency, tried to sell him some stuff. He said no. And then I said, "Are you guys hiring here?" They said, "Come back tomorrow. We'll do an interview with you." And I came back the next day, and he's like, "Okay, you're hired." Hired me on the spot. It's like, "Okay, now what do you do?" So now you got to bust your butt, man, and do cold calls. And I worked my way up from a telemarketer to a broker and stuff. And I built a decent book size of business, and then I sold that business a couple years after college. So, but anyways, the main thing is like putting yourself around successful people and having the courage to put your hand out and say, "Hey, I want to learn what you have, or I want to add value. I want to, as it worked out for John Gatto, is I want to use your name and spread your message. I think people ought to know about you." And this is a conversation for everybody. It's like, what do you care about? What do you want people to know about? And so I got a lot of respect for people that are creating media like you both. Whether it's audio or video, or maybe a blogger, maybe somebody doesn't like to be on camera or have their voice out there. We have to promote what we love, promote what we want to see in the world. The time has come where it's no longer say, "Hey, somebody got to do that," or "Somebody got to do that." So anytime somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, somebody should do this," or, "You ought to do this," I say, "Okay, that's great. Do you want to take the leadership on that committee?" And then they would find out what's really going on. The labor of putting together a podcast, a video, and organizing, and, doing together with a buddy. And it's like, there's time and there's conversations, and, we have life to live and other responsibilities. So, people are being called to leadership, and you don't have to be some great guy out there like John Taylor Gatto or somebody else who's, on the front line and, putting his name and likeness out there. You can do stuff behind the scenes. I have friends who were like, we started giving out free hugs on the boardwalk about 22 weeks ago, and I was live streaming it, and they're like, "Well, I want to help, but I want to stay off camera." I'm like, "Cool, it doesn't matter to me. Me, my friends, I'll do it by myself, whatever." And then little by little, they started becoming comfortable, and people are like, "Cool, I'll be on camera, give hugs to strangers and stuff like that." So everybody's dealing with their own comfort level. And that's what I think is important to respect, is that coercion is the enemy and consent is the solution. So if they want to help a little, great, help a little. If you want to help a medium or a large amount, that's great as well. But find out what you want everybody to know about. This is like when you discover something and your brain is exploded with like for me, like Will was saying, once I found out the school system was deliberately designed to create obedient soldiers, clerks, and consumers for life, I was like, man, if this is true, this is a big problem, man. This is a major problem. And how come nobody else is taking it on? I'll tell you why. Because it's a $600 billion business, conservatively, maybe maybe $1 trillion going into the system. A lot of money, a lot of people making a lot of money from it. And this is kind of the machine that creates the mindless soldiers. And this is no disrespect to any military people out there. I have family who are veterans and currently serving in the military, but I've had conversation with some of them and say, "Hey, they might send you off to kill women and children, or you might get killed. Why? Over what? You don't know these people. Why are you going to kill strangers or be put in the crossfire?" Now, it's different if someone attacks your house or your family, then that's worth putting yourself out there and, dying in, protection and righteousness. But going into Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, that is not freedom, and that is not what it's all about. As you guys know, and some of your listeners, it's about money. It's about power. It's about global governance. And the U.S. military is the enforcement arm of the rulers. The Rothschilds, Rockefellers, people, Council on Foreign Relations, Skull and Bones, Trilateral Commission, all these guys who've been, in their secret men's clubs, for decades, planning this stuff. So once enough people would move their kids from the system, then the mental slavery is over, at least for that child or that family. And that's why they're so strict on it. You know, you guys might have heard of a truancy officer. What the heck is that? That's when your child misses 3 days or 6 days without permission. They come knock on your, hey, where's Johnny? Oh, Johnny's got to come back to school. Why? Oh, because it's the state code, which says they can jail the parent for up to a year or fine them up to $2,000. That is California state code, and each of your states have different codes. And it's like, holy cow, man! Like, are parents not aware of this? Well, they don't know how to deal with it, and most of them come from a statist perspective, which is someone else has higher authority over me. And as you guys know, there's no higher authority over my body than me. And same thing for my child. You know, in the courts, you're dealing with property. So children are property in the court. So, you know, this is how you play the game is, you know, you can't touch my property without my permission. And I just had a friend who got a CPS case dismissed because she knew how to use the language. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. So I'm not going to be, the CPS was like, your case is dismissed, you know, have a great day, happy holidays or whatever. So, you know, this is another conversation is dealing in the courts. It's like, oh my gosh, like it is getting intense. This year, as you guys know, I don't have any plates on my car. I have private plates on my car. And so we're dealing with some of the court issues there. But yeah, we can talk about that now or later on if you like.
Yeah, we can go into that now. Yeah, you've been like basically, you know, directly confronting the system by like what you're doing, like driving without plates. I mean, you're directly putting yourself in that position. Really, you're exercising your freedom, right? And what have been the results of that?
So I had private plates on my car for 2 years, and I think this last year I basically had no plates because the cops took off my private plates. So I got the private plates from freedomfromgovernment.org. A guy named Trent Goodbody has some books, and that's where I got my dash cam. And just watching some of his videos and learning what he was talking about. And he was like, I'm going to stay and fight, you know, because this is the conversation. Stay, fight for freedom here, or leave the U.S. and, you know, go watch from abroad while the UN and the criminals inside try to, you know, take away our guns and, you know, physically enslave us. So I was reading through some of his stuff and really powerful. And so I had, like I said, 2 years with private plates. And I had, you know, some tickets here and there. And then this year, I had my window broken twice by 2 different police departments. I've had my car stolen, I think 4 times, maybe 5 times. I've been falsely, you know, imprisoned, you know, 5 times, 6 times, kidnapped 5 times, officially taken to jail. And so I have these different cases in different jurisdictions. This is going to be very interesting. Because there's been Supreme Court cases that have ruled as long as you're not using the public highways or roads for commercial profit, you're allowed to travel without registration and without license or permits. So I'm going to try it out, you know, because I have some people are like, oh, it's a headache. Don't even mess around with that. And it's like, okay, well, let's see. You know, I don't have any kids right now, so let's kind of push the limit a little bit and get personal experience because the government pushes fear. And if you're in fear, you have been properly indoctrinated by the government, just like I have. So, you know, that butterfly feeling in your gut when the cops are behind you, that feeling is slowly going away from me. Why? Because I have a dash cam right there. My 4 steps for getting pulled over is 1, start video recording, 2, lock the doors, roll up the windows, and then pull out my like basically no trespassing sign. I have the not for hire sign and one other sign I can't remember, but it's right by my seat right there. So I got my checklist, and this next time I'm gonna stay silent. You guys might have seen one of the videos where the guy says I don't answer questions. So I haven't yet to try that one because anytime I talk with these guys, God bless these police, man, but these guys are some of the dumbest dudes. They don't even know the law. They don't even care about the law. And you ask them, have you sworn oath to the Constitution? They're not interested in that. And you say, sir, do you know the difference between a traveler and a driver? I'm not here to argue. It's like, dude, I'm not here to art. I'm trying to explain to you the freaking law, man. Do you care about it? And the most recent time where I got falsely imprisoned, and then they cut my jacket and let me go, and then charged me with obstruction of justice.
Oh,
I literally said, "Hey, can I speak to your supervisor, please?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then by the time the supervisor showed up, I am in the back seat handcuffed, and the supervisor comes up. He's like, what seems to be the problem?" I'm like, "Well, you guys have just kidnapped me. I've committed no crime. I wasn't driving at all. I was literally sitting in a parking lot on a Zoom call with Dr. Andy Kaufman talking about an event in Philadelphia like this." And the guy comes knocking on the window. He's like, "Sir, you don't have any plates on." I say, "Is that a crime?" "Yeah." "Against who?" "State California." "What's that?" I'm not here to argue. So you start asking questions, and I'm sure these guys are well-intentioned, but they're specifically kept ignorant. They're taught that if you have a shiny badge, you now have superhuman and godly rights. You can just violate people. So it's getting very interesting because something that came out of the group this summer is called the Freedom Law Study Group, and that group is on Facebook as well. We're learning how to sue these people, and that was the name of the class by Tony Pellegrino, How to Sue Your Government Officials So They'll Stop Violating Your Rights. So literally like 2 weeks after we gave that class, I'm getting, kidnapped, having my window broken in, and, just ridiculous things. Like, all right, we're going to learn how to do a federal lawsuit against your city jurisdiction or your county, and we're going to see, so government itself is illegitimate, as Lysander Spooner pointed out 150 years ago now. But some people do find some kind of justice, degree of justice. And there's been lawsuits that people get paid off, people get fired, people quit their jobs. All we want to do, if you swore an oath to the Constitution, you should follow that oath. I didn't swear an oath to the Constitution. You government officials swore an oath, and if you're violating it, you have to pay the consequences. You can't kidnap people and violate my God-given rights and have no consequences. So if this is going to ruin your life, then you should have thought about that before you kidnap me, or before you harmed another person, or whatever you're doing. And we see them shoot people on camera, and sometimes nothing happens. So my hope is not in the government, not in the legal system. My hope is in free humanity and sharing the ideas of self-ownership, of non-aggression, and helping inspire other people that you own your life. So we're not outnumbered, we're out-organized. So it's time to start building relationships with people who are moral and peaceful, having real conversations. And it's this: do whatever you want. Just don't use coercion, threats, or intimidation against me, and we're good, And so one of my buddies is he's like, "There's no such thing as rights." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You have to have an agreement. You have to have contracts with each other." I was like, okay. So I was on the phone with him today talking about that, because let's say us right here, John and Chill Will here, we all make an agreement to not aggress against each other. Now we have solid, concrete, explicit legal paperwork that says we're not going to aggress against each other. If there is, we can put the consequences of whatever's in there, versus rights, which are kind of a vague thing. And I'm still trying to grasp the concept, but we got to get like physical and in reality agreements with each other. So then we know, oh, okay, this is a peaceful dude, that's a peaceful lady. We can maybe do some business, maybe open up a grocery store, maybe open up a hardware store or something, because the direction of this whole scandemic is pretty clear to me that it's going to be the tests and the vaccines, or vaccine certificates. Costco no longer respects a medical exemption. And it's like, some people have serious medical conditions, man, whether it's PTSD from being raped, or you have asthma, you can get hypoxia or hypercapnia. It's a serious problem. And I think if we can find each other and make peaceful agreements, I think that would be one of the solutions that we can promote. But in terms of the court stuff, we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, I think we have to become our own litigator. We have to become the student of the law. And that's why these attorneys call it a law practice, because they are practicing a medical practice. Doctors are practicing. You don't become an expert, say, yes, I know everything about the law, or everything about medicine and health. You're constantly learning. You're constantly sharpening your sword. And with others, it's really exciting. You know, if I'm locked in my room trying to figure it out by myself, it's difficult. But if I can call up you guys, hey man, have you dealt with this? Oh, have you dealt with that? Oh, send me the notice of violation. Because when we sent the notice of violation to Carmel Police Department and the mayor down there, they left us alone on Labor Day. They said, oh, the beach is closed. And they even had signs in downtown Carmel that said no mask equals $100 fine. And so we're walking down downtown Carmel. Hey, we declare the beach open. Come on, right? And they were like walking down the little downtown area. And we had about 10 of us. We get down there. There's yellow tape, you know, like 80 feet or 100 feet blocking the entrance, literally blocking the entrance to the beach. And all these people there. And we said, we now declare the beach open. And so one of my friends goes and cuts the tape, grabs it up, you know, throws it in the trash. And there's nobody on the beach. 10 of us go down the beach and we're calling back, hey, come on, it's open. And within 15 minutes, there's 100 people on my right, 100 people on my left, people coming up to us, oh my gosh, thank you for opening up the beach. And then one lady, she didn't tell it to me, she told my other friend, she said, somebody said, when the freedom activists come, they'll open up the beach. It's like, who hears about this stuff, man? So it also on video. So like when we first stormed down there in Carmel, there was 10 or 12 of us. And then the police is on the actual shoreline driving directly at us. And we're like, all right, time for a conversation. And the cops come at us, all, and then choom, up the hill, on the road, left us alone. And one of my buddies, he says, hey, did you get our letter? And the letter was a notice of violation. Dear police department, dear officials, we're going to be on the beaches and the parks by our God-given rights and First Amendment. And if you violate it, here's what you're violating, you know, Title 42 and Title 18 and all these different federal codes. And they wanted no part of that. So we're going to see about the other cases that I'm currently debating and dealing with. But ultimately, I think we got to send the paperwork to them, notarize it. If you can have some witnesses, that's good as well. What these predator organizations do is they go after easy prey. So just like a lion going after a fallen deer or gazelle, lions don't want to fight with other lions. And so once we demonstrate we're not backing down and we're standing up, oh, case dismissed. Oh, and these types of things come up. That's what happened to Mike. He had a great motion to dismiss up there in Sacramento. They don't want to deal with that. They want people to say, oh, how much money do I owe you? Okay, here's $1,000, here's $10,000. Please just let me be free. Oh, you want to be free? You got to pay for it. So we are, paying with our time and our energy, but our purpose is not just to win for ourselves. We're going to try to create an army of lawful ninjas, lawful champions, and pass it on because it's intergenerational. We didn't get where we are just in the last 10 months. It just got really crazy the last 10 months of 2020, but they've been building, as you guys know, Agenda 21, United Nations, plan to enslave people under the guise of climate change and sustainability. So we actually have to start thinking like them, intergenerational freedom. I gave a speech at Anarcha Vegas last year about that, and kind of the mindset of how do we pass on the torch of freedom to other people when one guy is feels isolated and vulnerable. The power of two is great, but 3, 4, 5, 10. Literally, I gave the story with 10 people at Carmel Beach. We did the same thing at Cowell's Beach in Santa Cruz, with 12 people. They said the beach was closed from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. because that's when the corona is like really active or something, some other horse shit. And so again, we went down there, started with 12 people. And then the next week it doubled to 20. Next people doubled to 30 and then 40. And then, it's like they don't want to deal with us, And then, by the way, if they come up to you and say, okay, we're going to give you citations, you say, sir, I respect you as a human, but I just prefer to stay silent. They have nothing. Either they're going to kidnap you or violate your rights on video and illegally search and seize your private information, or they're going to leave you alone. I mean, this is really where they got to decide Are they going to be good people or bad guys? And we have another video. We were out there in Marin County Beach. Same thing happened. It was 10 p.m. It was illegal to have a bonfire, illegal to have glass and beer on the beach. And it was a sheriff. He came up, and there was about 14 of us. And he says, all right, the fire is illegal, the beer, the glass. Who's going to take responsibility for that? And we all just sat there in silence. And he says, okay, all of you guys want a citation? We can do that. So, sir, give me your identification. Stayed silent. So it really is understanding really what power is inside of us already. And, you know, by myself, I'm a crazy man. But with 10 people, with 14 people, now we got something going on. And so this is kind of the momentum that's been building. And I think ultimately we're going to have to create our own farmers market, our own grocery stores, maybe a buyer's club or something like that, because some of these statists really believe that the state has authority over them, and you got to get permission to open up a business, and you got to get permission to travel, and you got to get permission to fix your leaky roof. You got to get permission to plant vegetables in your front yard, or whatever, you know, cockamamie thing that they're trying to force upon you. The remembrance and I think the great awakening, the great sovereign awakening is that my rights come from God. And if you politicians and government officials think you are more powerful than God, I want to see the evidence, man, because it's not okay for you to brutalize me and then have this plan to enslave me. So this is why I've been getting loud, you know, all summer and even the last few years, is because I'm looking around. I'm like, where is anybody who's calling out the criminality of these guys? And then that's the same question that I had earlier, is like, somebody's got to be doing this. And I look in the mirror, I say, okay, I'm going to do this, you know, and I got a lot of respect for the Dollar Vigilante, Jeff Berwick, Larkin Rose, Mark Passio, all these champions who, you know, I consider, you know, friends and colleagues and people I respect, and they all have their own approach to the freedom conversation. And so this is, I think, where we're going. Like you guys, you know, you guys have your own approach. The NFL, man, the National Freedom League, that's awesome, dude. So you got to find what you love to do and say, okay, we're going to do this once a week or once a month or however we're going to do it. And maybe you have online stuff, or maybe do in-person things, whatever, you know, you as the individual want to do, you do it, and you do it and make it fun, right? This is not a job where I go and open up the beaches and I'm not making any money doing this. I enjoy having a bonfire on the beach. And if it was just me by myself, I'd have a great time. But it's not about the bonfire. It's about freedom. It's about exercising it, not asking permission to have the band, as you guys saw down there, you know, with the Funky Fathers and the Freedom Foundation. There's no permits. That's all illegal. But they haven't messed with us for 3 or 4 months because they know they're going to catch a brick wall of non-cooperation, non-participation in our own slavery, because we see where it's going. This is not about beers on the beach. This is about my rights come from God and you ain't God. So, you know, back up and, you know, again, respecting their humanity, but disrespecting their authority over me. And I think, you know, this is where it gets fun, you know, giving out free hugs, having the bonfires, and then we're going to evolve and hopefully have a community center and, you know, really start to, you know, put it down out here as best we can, depending on how fast the tyranny is moving. But you know, getting together in a community, it really is a enlightening thing. It's fun. And if we, you know, have a little bit of a vision, then we start, you know, attracting the parents and the grandparents and the children, and they start to see, oh, these are safe guys. They're peaceful, and they're not going to be some slaves, because, you know, many of the people in the group have like European background or even Asian background, but they're like, man, I saw this in my country. It was not good after this. You know, it's just going to ramp up. They're not going to give you back your freedom. Tyrants don't do that. They incrementalize and gradually take away your freedom. And pretty soon you're boiling in a pot, as the boiling frogs analogy says, and you don't know how you got there. So that's why it's so important, the work you guys are doing. And, you know, we got to keep having the conversation.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. That's ultimately the solution, right? Is completely opt out and detached from the system. I like what you said, that we're not outnumbered, we're unorganized, and that's it. So more conversations, more get-togethers, people coming together, and action, 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 right? The most powerful word is no. And the social engineers, they can't create anything new. All they can do is manipulate and control. So it's the end of 2020, and if people haven't recognized the pattern recognition that government is slavery and the belief in authority is completely illegitimate, you got a lot of work to do. But it's time to look in the mirror and put that action in it.
Mm.
Well, it's awesome. It's awesome too that it's like, they pushed so hard this year, and like sitting here looking back, it's like, look at all of this stuff that's happened. Look at all these people we've met. I went out and started sitting on a corner just holding some signs, and it turned into a podcast, and now we're like all sharing that information. It's just like, yeah, it's like there's that silver lining in it. And again, that goes to like the Hermetic principles, where it's like the polarity, right? Like if you have to start understanding those patterns in nature, and how those natural laws work. And the only way to do it is to get out and work with people. It forces you to collaborate. One point I wanted to make was, I had gotten really into Mark Passio's work. Was like, just the ideology of natural law, the understanding of natural law. And, Mark is kind of a purist, right? But like when I saw Cal Washington and the In Power movement, and he had the notice of liability, to me, my take on that was, this is natural law in action, right? Like it's using natural law in a document that works in, it keeps them out of the system, but it uses their mechanism, I guess you can call it, which it really comes down to language and words and how you word things. And that's how they trap us. Right. And I really like that idea your buddy was saying, because you do have to respect the Constitution, because it codifies natural law, and it can create remedies for you at this point, right? Because you can go back to that and say, there's this, law of the land that you have to follow. But we know that law is based on spiritual laws that are immutable. But the way they trick us is they use that language and that wordplay to trick us into, going along with our enslavement. So it's interesting, just, you have those purists who are like, I'm a true anarchist and I'm not going to cooperate with the system at all. But if you get caught up in the system, it's best to have that tool where you know how to use the language and you have practice, like you said.
Yeah. The state is such a large organized crime syndicate that once they get you in the system, they'll say, hey, you're going to be charged for 50 years, or you take a plea deal for 5 years. And you're like, okay, I mean, this is coercion, right? We're going to hit you on the head with a big mallet, or would you like to take a little mallet smack in the face? It's like, I'll take the little mallet. This is not real choices. So yeah, this is why I really appreciate Lysander Spooner saying that, if you call yourself a government, then now robbery is legalized. So then any gang of robbers just call themselves a government, and now it's legitimate. So it's all based on coercion. And I was just wearing one of my favorite shirts today, which said, "Don't argue, build." And it's by the Startup Societies Foundation, and they're doing creative stuff with like homesteading or seasteading. I think Roger Ver was doing the private city project, private cities operation, something like that, where you actually buy land from the government and then you can, do your own thing on it. So we're looking for ways, and I think the future is going to be voluntary villages or intentional communities. I got a group called Voluntary Village Creators on Facebook, where we're discussing, okay, what about the organization? What about conflict resolution? How do you deal with maybe problems in your community? Like, what's going on there? Because people are the variable, right? So we can come with good intentions, but when we're neighbors, now it's like, oh my gosh, now we got this guy living next to us. And so we have to go maybe through an application process or some type of a method to find out if the values are the same or similar in respecting natural rights, your self-ownership. And we've been so suppressed. I think a lot of us are dealing with like over freedom, over emphasis on freedom, because I didn't know that as a young guy, but I could subconsciously feel the force of the schools, the force of my parents, the force of the church. And like, all I was feeling was like, oh, you guys are all telling me to do stuff. Leave me the hell alone, man. Stop. And I didn't know that was like one of the cries that a lot of people have, like, stop using force against me, man. What is going on here? And you find out that force is completely violating your natural rights. And I think it is, there always is conversation about, purism or pragmatism, right? And I'm at to the point where, like, just take action of any kind. Ron Paul was a politician, but it's through Ron Paul that millions of people locally, or I say nationally and globally, learned about the military-industrial complex, learned about the Federal Reserve banking system. So he used the platform to educate. And he even said that although none of his bills passed, he actually caused a conscious awakening, a conscious cultural revolution, effectively, with the Ron Paul, the In the Fed movement. So I think there's benefits to using the system. There's benefits to transcending the system, but I think we're so deep in the game. I think action is the power word. So if you want to work within it and become a supervisor of your local politicians, do it. You want to become the mayor? Do it. You want to become a neighborhood guy? Do it. You want to transcend, go off grid and live off Bitcoin and solar power and goats and chickens? Do it. And then help other people. It's like, we're learning this stuff so that the people who are coming behind us have some breadcrumbs to follow. Because Murray Rothbard had been talking about this since the 70s, and his book that changed my life is called For a New Liberty. And he goes through how would a stateless society operate without police, the fire department, national security, these big questions. And I was like, wow, could humans live without the government? Yes, they can, because anybody who uses threats, intimidation, or coercion, they're the bad guy. And so, okay, we'll figure it out. And that's really what it comes down to. But the police was a big one. And how I overcame my disbelief about the police is I met a gentleman who runs Threat Management Center out of Detroit, Michigan, Dale Brown. And he spoke at my event in San Jose, and I flew out there and saw his facility in Detroit. And it was amazing. He's got Hummers and boats and motorcycles, and it's all voluntarily paid for. Basically, the homeowners association pays him an amount every month, or each house pays like $10. So, it's like I don't know, $10,000 account or whatever. But then if a resident calls him, he shows up within like 3 to 5 minutes and doesn't shoot anybody, right? He treats them like they're brothers or sisters, so the human family. And the first 10 minutes is free, whatever the conflict is, whatever the problem is. And then each minute thereafter costs $1. So they know that. So as soon as he gets there, okay, ma'am, you got 10 minutes. How can I help you? Oh, we had this burglar. We had this thing. Okay. And beginning the 11th minute, that's $1, and then $2 and $3. So then, okay, now it's incentivized. All right, problem solved. Let's get out of here. They only cost me $20, and you didn't have to have an armed thug that has qualified immunity and a police union and all these other things to back him up. He's a private entrepreneur, with 30 employees, and he's never had a lawsuit in 20 years. And he said, you know why I never had a lawsuit against me? Because I strategically, tactically, and psychologically prepare myself for every encounter. And I tell my guys, if anybody gets sued, I have to pay for it. I can't depend on the taxpayer to pay for it. I have to pay for it. And that increases insurance and all these other things. So that was how I overcame the belief that humans couldn't have a voluntary police department. And it turns out it's very common. Actually, there's private security all over the country and probably all over the world. It's just the mind control by the media is heavy, So like, you ever watch these shows or heard about these shows, Law and Order, CSI, all these things? I asked Dale Brown about that, and he's like, that's all a bunch of shit, man. Like, that's not what they do. Like they look at some tire tracks and they zoom in. They're like, oh, the tracks. Oh, do. They're like, dude. He said, I actually had someone physically break in and rob somebody. I saw him. I went and grabbed him, took him to the police department. Turns out he was a son of a politician or somebody. And literally 20 minutes later, the kid comes out, no charges, nothing. And I personally saw him break and enter into someone else's property. So it really is a boys club with who you know in the police department. And, you got to know the right people. But when you're watching television, it truly is mind control to help you feel small, help you feel weak. And so this is why we haven't seen, super empowering shows and movies, because they want you to think Batman and Superman and the Hulk, those are the superheroes. In fact, you're the superhero if you stand up for what you believe in, take courage, put your life on the line, live a legacy, find your purpose, and protect the children. That's a hero in my mind. But they got to make you got to worship some comic book hero or something. It really is powerful because you're the living man, you're the living woman. You are the real deal, man. And so waking up to yourself is part of this great awakening, in my opinion. The sacredness of your life, the temporality of your life, the spark that keeps us alive every day. Like I used to jokingly say every day's my birthday, and now I'm like, no, I'm happy today, man. It is my birthday. Every day's Christmas. I wake up today, breathing that oxygen. It feels good to be alive. Go swim or go drink some water, or go party on the beach or whatever you're gonna do. Live your life, my friends. This is maybe your last New Year's. Maybe there's something crazy gonna happen. Enjoy it. Go for it. And that vibrance and vitality for life, I think, is what has been missing. And so every day I'm like, okay, it's great to be alive today. Despite everything that's going on, I'm happy to be alive today. And these criminals are going for the jugular of human consciousness and love and human dignity, in my opinion. And they realize the internet put them in a bad space. They didn't think that 9/11 would fall apart so quickly with 3,000 architects and engineers coming out. And now you have, I think it's the Great Barrington Declaration, where I think there's like 3,000 or 4,000 doctors calling BS on this scam. And even Dr. Andy Kaufman said the virus doesn't even exist because they haven't isolated the virus, which means if you haven't isolated it, you can't put it into another host, which means you can't determine if that host has the same symptoms as the first host. So some of this illogical, irrational science is being called out, and they're putting their lives on the line. So, this is what we're talking about, Brandy Vaughn, that freedom fighter who was a Merck pharmaceutical sales rep, and she was strangely died, a few weeks ago in her mid 40s. And, whether it was her gallbladder or something else, we do know that she told me 5 years ago, there's going to be 300 vaccines in the pipeline. They didn't just want to vaccinate your children. They want to vaccinate everybody on the planet is what they want to vaccinate. And because the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act, you can't sue the vaccine manufacturers. They're not liable for the formaldehyde, for the bad effects, polysorbate 80 or aluminum, whatever, trash they got in these things. You can't sue them. So it did look a little suspicious. And, we hope that the investigation is carried out and we find truth in the situation. Maybe somebody will come out and blow the whistle on that. But there is risks in speaking truth. But I think the greater risk is staying silent. I think there's fear. Yeah, be afraid of, what's going on. But I think there's greater fear in understanding where it's going if we stay silent. And so that's why I've gotten louder, and trying to get louder and still stay, calm and reasonable when it's just like this tsunami is coming. But they move slowly, right? It's like the Titanic. Once you turn the wheel, it slowly, shifts the huge ship. But us three and people you're listening here, we're like the little jet ski boat. We're just quick. We can move around. So if we can organize and actually push ourselves to somewhere, we can change this whole thing and make the Titanic fall and, not kill ourselves, not harm anybody in the process. But pretty soon, I think these executives at these companies are going to be called out as well, because they're actually behind this, making huge profits on pharmaceuticals, and who knows what Pfizer and Moderna are going to benefit by the mandatory or the coerced vaccine that got coming. And it is, once everybody starts speaking up, then I think more people will be courageous and not as fearful. So we're kind of in that little bridge area where it's like, okay, We got to choose. Are we going to be silent or middle loud or a little bit loud? But that's up to everyone else out there. And, I've kind of already made up my choice to be as loud as I can.
Yeah, obviously too, man. You're doing a good job, and it's a great time to get loud. You know, fear is based in ignorance, and all the information is out there. The agenda that the social engineers are putting out, it's hidden in plain sight. They're telling people what they're going to do. They've been telling people what they're going to do, like Brandy told you 5 years ago. All these vaccines are coming down the pipeline. Here we are. And so it's a good time to dive into information. Probably one of the best thing anybody can do is turn off your TV, detach from that, and stop externalizing and looking for that external savior. The savior is inside you. You have to save yourself. We have to save ourselves. And it's a good time to get loud and get out there.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about how the Milgram experiment. One thing they learned was that the more that people did stand up and say no to the doctor, then the other people would follow suit. So, but I feel like the Milgram experiment is just continuing right now. We're in it still. It's like, how far can we get people to follow doctors, and do whatever doctors say and scientists say,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely, man. Yeah. If they don't respect freedom of choice from the individual, they're violating the Nuremberg Code, right? Which is consent is essential. So this is the real conversation. I'm not even anti-mask, anti-vaccine. I think everybody has freedom of choice. And so anybody out there, hey, do you believe you have the right to force people to wear a mask at the test or get vaccinated? If you do, you're violating natural law principles, and there may be consequences. Okay, you can't violate God's rights or God's people and have no repercussions. And so if you want to get a vaccine, cool. If you want to wear a mask, cool. Just don't force me and the people I'm around, because we've looked into it and we're a little bit skeptical of these manufacturers who have no liability. And it seems like maybe they won't have checkpoints, where it's like, where's your vaccine? I think they might do like use the grocery store, use economic terrorism, economic warfare, where it's like, in order to shop at Costco, you got to have your vaccine certificate. Oh, Target. Oh, Walmart. Oh, Amazon. All these guys are requiring this stuff. So it's like, oh, we respect freedom of choice, but you got to get a vaccine to shop with us. So this is where now we got to start talking about building, creating. The Buckminster Fuller quote I love is, you never change reality by fighting against it. You have to create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. So I think that is the one of the slogans for the future. If people can capture that, as I've been kind of digesting that for a few years, it's like, oh my gosh, if it is to be, it's up to me. And this is part of the great realization, is like, there is no one coming. As you said, Will, it is the man, the woman in the mirror. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Take a breath, do some meditation, and then pour some cold water on us, or take a cold shower, because it's a call for some action. And or not, you're free to do whatever you want, but these guys do have generational plans, 2030. And I think they even had something, was it Healthy People or Healthy something 2050? It's like, oh my gosh, I saw Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the trilaterals or CFR guys who died in the past few years. He says they make 50 and 70-year plans. And I was like, holy smokes, man. Like, I'm trying to look at my 1 year, 3 year, 10-year plan or something like this. And these guys have 50 and 70-year plans, because all they have is time, right? They have all the money they need. So they just sit there on their vacations and, how are we going to do it? And this virus play, oh man, this was probably one of their best ones in the playbook, where it's like invisible and there's the no test and all these different, traits of it. And then I learned about something called Operation Bluebeam, where I don't know if it's the CIA or the FBI have a operation where there's like a fake alien invasion. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one, but it's like
sure.
The projection of like the sky. It's like, oh, it's Jesus or it's the aliens or whatever. And this is how they're going to cause more unity, false unity, to, we got to stick together and give more power to the government, or blah, 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 whatever they're going to do. But anyways, they make diabolical plans. And I think we don't have to be diabolical, but I think the vibrations of love, the vibrations of respect, compassion, empathy really are powerful. And as I mentioned, we've given away free hugs, and it's crazy because sometimes people come up and they're so vitriolic and mean. And I decided, okay, I'm not here to convert you, right? That's what the bonfire's for. That's what, I don't know, my videos are for. But like at this project, this moment, I'm sending you peace and love, joy and love. That's it. You know, whether you think COVID is real or the biggest scam in human history, that's your choice. I'm just saying I'm sending you love, my brother, my sister on the planet. And I just had a realization this past few weeks, and like, if I genuinely come from that space, then they cannot anger me. They cannot upset me because I know they are brainwashed. I know they're mind controlled. They're probably loving people because they think, hey, I'm wearing this mask for you, not for me. I'm wearing this mask to protect you. They literally have that reverse logic, as Mark Passio so excellently points out. And so it's like, okay, so love is one of the vibrations that I'm more tapping into. And one of my mentors, Kyle Cease, and friend, he says people don't have to search for love. They're trying to find it, you know, in sex or other types of things or whatever. But he says you don't have to search for love because you are love. And that really hit me hard because it's like, oh, okay, from a deep level, there's that vibration, whether it's our parents or ancestors or God, there's something inside of me that genuinely wants to love people. But when they come at me, you know, with their lies and their mean spiritedness and hate for freedom, you know, I get triggered. But actually, if I can transcend that, I think that's part of the Great Awakening, is that no matter what you do to me, I'm just sending you love. And the 1982 movie Gandhi talks about that a little. You know, what he said is that if you are on your path and somebody hits you and you don't strike back, you keep on your path, that increases the respect for you from them, because they're like, wow, this person, you know, is not going to fight back. They're actually going to stay peaceful despite me brutalizing them. And of course, he had, you know, millions of people with him. He was a national hero there in South Africa. But just the idea that, you know, love is the lesson, and how can we embody that? Because if I'm mean-spirited and say, oh, the data's wrong or this or that, then I'm fighting them. But if it's like, hey, man, you just believe whatever you want. I'm loving you. I'm sending you love right now. That's it. That's it. I'm not trying to convert you to nothing. I'm not trying to get no money from you. I am just sending you love. And if that upsets you, that's okay, man. I'm still sending you love.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. That's so important. It's all about polarization, right? They want to get the dialectic and keep people confused internally, externally, keep them confused and fear-based consciousness. So when you say, you know, activate that love, it's a certain kind of love. It's that love for truth. It's cosmic love. It's divine love, or called agape, from the Greek. And you know, that frequency is ultimately a balanced, a brain balanced state that you're in, where you understand the principles of non-aggression, that you do not want to do no harm, but you understand self-defense, meaning that you have respect for yourself to protect yourself if violated against. But yeah, agape, man.
Yeah. What's so funny, because you mentioned agape or agape, I've heard different pronunciations,
Yeah.
but the Greek, there was 8 types of love. And I don't have it memorized, but that was in my speech from Anarchapulco. Freedom families, the cure for statism. And so I went through some of them. But yeah, there's romantic love, there's self-love, there's love of career, love of humanity, and all these different types of love. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't, I wasn't taught this in school and college. And, everybody's just like learns about love on movies. And it's really a weird topic, but it's like essential. And Roberto Benigni said, there's no such thing as wasted love. And we always love too little, too late. So when I heard that recently, I said, oh man, I'm just going to love people. And there's no such thing as wasted love. So, and then unconditional love is I give without conditions. And then you mentioned self-defense, which I think is important too, because if you come after me or my kids, I love and I'll, strike back. with maximum force in love for my kids. You can't do that to me or my kids or my family, So love is a powerful word that's there's all these different degrees of it and different meanings of it. So people can look into those types of love.
That's also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna consciousness is devotional service. And when I read that, I was like, so it's the love of God, but it's seeing God in everybody, and like you're a servant to everybody. You're trying to help everybody along. It's also the Bodhisattva way, right? You want to, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. So we need everybody to be free ultimately, but we are in this interesting space where it does start with choice, because as much as I talk to my family about the dangers of what's going on and the truth about what's going on, they don't want to listen to me. And ultimately I have to accept that, and they might get the vaccine, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want them to get injured, but we are at this stage where it seems like this transition, where there's going to be people that stay in the old way, and then there's going to be people that start building something new. It's already started, so it's just interesting, like all the different cultures have that idea, and there really is something to it. Like even being out talking to people and about natural law, it helps us to understand where they're coming from, how they're gonna and like you said, sharpening the sword, it helps us to develop ways to communicate it better and add to our information and let that evolve. So it's cool. You can feel the process happening, even just talking with you here,
It is. I mean, it really is a consciousness, exchange and growth and how to upgrade our thinking, because it's been through mental slavery. They've kept us down. And that's why I get so passionate about schools, is because Johann Fichte said in 1806, in summary, whoever's been in charge of the state school system for one generation, they won't need policemen or armies, because the people will police themselves. And so that's why when we're out there walking around and someone's like, you got to have a mask on, or you're a threat to me, or all these things, you're like, why are they so mad? What's going on? Because they actually think I'm responsible for their health. And I've had this on video the last couple of weeks. Somebody's coming up and I say, who is responsible for your health? And I've had multiple, I think it was, two women and a man said, well, me and everybody around me. I say, no, you're responsible for your health. If you're afraid of the COVID, you should be home. You can't come out here in public and make mandates on me because I'm not afraid of the COVID. So it's a step towards personal responsibility, right? Which is the other side of freedom. So either you're responsible for your health or you're not. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's your body, man. God gave you a body. He calls it a temple, in some books, that you're living in. And I'm not responsible for your body. Or if I am, then at least you got to put me in charge of your diet, your exercise, your rest, your hydration, all that stuff. And then we can talk about who's responsible for your body. But because the media convolutes everything and like makes white and black become gray and people can't get their bearings, we got to go back to some of the basic questions, which is who owns your body? Who's responsible for your health? Who's responsible for your safety? Who's responsible for your freedom? Since they don't teach that in school, it's some of the most basic fundamental questions. Yeah. And then you sit there and you're like, wow, I'm responsible for this. So let's create a mutually beneficial relationship. You win and I win. And let's trade. Maybe you got some fruit and I got some beef, or I got some homeschooling services and you got some chiropractic services, or whatever the trade is. Let's make it a win-win instead of a win-lose, which is always what the city, county, and federal governments do, is they use this extortion. So it is, like you said, man, we're going to build, we're going to transcend. Some people are going to be left behind. But what I say about my family, I love my family. I'll make a place for them at my table. But I got to move forward. I got to go where I need to go. And one of my friends told me this great parable. I think it was some native tribe, might have been maybe the Sioux or Hopi. I think it was the Hopi. She said, in times of turbulence, You don't hold on to the shore. You let go of the shore, you jump in the raft with the people you're with, and you celebrate the people that you're with. And wherever the river goes, it has its own destination and you will get there. But you cannot hang on to the shore. You jump in the raft, celebrate who's there, and go where the river's taking you. And I think that's what's happening. You know, we're kind of letting go of all these old ideals and beliefs. And we're like, okay, I'm going to jump in the boat with my freedom friends, people who have a basic moral compass, who are not going to use coercion against me. And I feel safe with these guys. You know, otherwise, if I'm in a boat with someone who believes in authority outside of myself and uses threats and kidnapping and violence, I'm not going to have that person around in my boat, in my village, in my life, if possible. However, later on, they will see that a consensual, voluntary relationship is the most obvious, basic, good type of relationship ever. And how they ever got duped into believing other people have rights that we don't have is one of the great mind control feats of our time. But it can't last, I think, as long as we keep producing media and maybe even get into the music, as Mike and his crew have been doing, in comedy. JP Sears is doing some stuff. I don't know if he's a voluntarist, but he's definitely pro-truth and pro-freedom, I would say. And other comedians, other media producers, artists, we need to create art because we got the logic from Murray Rothbard and Samuel Conkin and other people, great people, Lou Rockwell, Mises. Now we got to put it the right side with the actual human application, the heart to heart, the compassion, the emotion, the inspiration, the fun, the freedom, where it's like, let's take the intellectual and make it into something that's in the physical world. And then they will naturally leave the sinking Titanic and start to build their own little jet ski boats or come on board with us and say, oh, this is where the fun, the freedom, and joy is. Yep, this is where it is, man. Let's go. We're heading out. That thing is going down. And, anytime there's a big institution going down, they make death throws, and they're going to try to grab anything or anybody within reach. And that's one reason I'm trying to get out of the city. So I don't know what you guys take out of the city, but like rural life seems pretty attractive to me at this point.
Yeah, definitely. For sure, man. It's a shift in consciousness, man. It's gotta stick in the mind. It has to change in the mind, because ultimately that's what's going to change your behavior. So I love it, man. Education, right? The meaning of education means to lead out of, and lead out of slavery and into freedom. So
right,
man.
Absolutely.
And that's why your homeschool stuff is like, it's really the foundation of what we're trying to build, because like you said, thinking generationally, like we got to instill these values in our kids, and that's going to make a huge difference that we can't even, I mean, we can imagine it, but it's something that becomes exponential at that point once you're instilling it into the next generation. And like you said, art, that's a great way to reach people, because those people might find that at any time, at any age,
Yeah, some of the great art that I met an artist in Acapulco named Mear1, MEAR, and then the word one. He's got some good stuff. And even education, as you mentioned, it means to lead from within or draw from within. So every child's a born genius. Every child's brilliant in their own ways. And for me, I define education as what you do to yourself to create a good life. And this is, I think, important for young people to think about, even us adults to think about, is what is a good life? And so, kind of getting clear on our ideals, our goals, our dreams, our ambitions, and having some type of, 1 year, 5 year, 10, maybe even having a 30-year goal. One of my other mentors said, imagine that you are 90 years old and you're on your front porch on your rocking chair. It's called the rocking chair moment. And you're thinking backwards on your life, and you think on your life and you say, yes, I did it. I did it in my life. And so whatever it is to each one of you guys out there is different, ladies out there, but that's something to think about, because that moment will come, whether you're 90 or 100 or 70 or 200, whatever the case might be. You're going to look back on your life and say, did you do it or not? And so clarifying what it is now rather than later would be very helpful. And even like if the young children or teenagers, they're able to believe earlier. So, one of my students, I graduated her age 14, and I said, well, what do you want to do in the future? Oh, I want to have a dive shop, in South America. I was like, wow, that's awesome. She like knows what country, she knows what she wants to do. Age 14, ready to crush it in life. And, I didn't find my dream to my late 20s, and, not because of college or school, but I participated in some transformational education, and it's like, oh my gosh. And the framework was choose any project. This was a 4-month project. Choose any project you want and we'll help you. We'll do some weekly accountability and kind of, coach you along the way. And that's why I started my Education Options Expo. And I was so amazed, like, wow, I can produce an event. That was amazing. Like, I didn't even know I would be so excited by that. And so if you can find your highest excitement, whether that is freedom in music or comedy or art or meditation, maybe you like being in nature, maybe you like to go do some stuff in nature, but to wrap it up with freedom, I think is the way of the future, where it's like, yes, let's do this stuff and talk about freedom. Something I just started for some teenagers. I don't know how old your kids are out there, but it was called Youth Success Club. And I talked to some of my conscious parent friends and like, my gosh, my kids are doing distance learning from home or they play video games all the time, and we got to get together, and they won't listen to me, but they'll probably listen to you. So I was like, cool. So we talk about success principles and truth and freedom and red pill and voluntarism and, these types of things, because if we don't tell this to our young people, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it from PewDiePie or these other people. Maybe PewDiePie will come on board at some point, or, these other people. But for the most part, it's us creating media and, sharpening our skills in that arena. But, I think I've recorded a couple of those talks. I haven't released them. But the main thing is like wrapping it up. So like, yes, we give them the red pill. We talk about truth, but what's in it for them? And, we want them to have a successful life, whether they become freedom champions, like us out here on the show and people out there, or they want to go do some other thing. At least they know your position and they know that you're not going to use coercion or violence against them. And ultimately, I think parents just want happy, healthy, successful kids, or kids who can produce and have an independent livelihood. And then that's a good goal that we can all shoot for. And then wrapped in that is, dang, man, what's happening in this world? What is going on? Because once they get a bearing on that, then they're better equipped to address the realities of the courts, of the government, all this baloney, and realize it's all fiction. It's all a paper game. So how can we become more empowered playing the paper game and get our cases dismissed? And, if they come after us, then we can do lawsuits. So hopefully I'll give some updates for you guys here in the coming months about some of these things. I don't know how long they take, but I'm about to find out.
Yeah.
How many cases do you have?
Over 5. I'll tell you offline. But they're all victimless crimes. There's no victim in any of them. I've damaged no property in any of them. They're all codes, mostly vehicle codes, driving without plates. They like to give me resisting arrest ones because that's a very common one. But that was when this is one of the funny videos. Actually, one of my videos got 180,000 views on Instagram, was when I got pulled over by CHP. I parked my car on a private parking lot, gas station, locked it. And that way they don't have any jurisdiction, allegedly. This is something I heard from something. So I tried it. And so I get out and I literally put my camera there. I say, sir, I'm going to need 3 forms of identification. CHP didn't know how to deal with me. So he's sitting there writing, and I didn't identify myself, right? And so he's trying to run my VIN number, and he calls up this other buddy and he calls up the sergeant. Long story short, they ended up grabbing my phone after 10 minutes, kidnap me, take me to the car, go take me to the county jail. I'm sitting handcuffed in the car, about to be admitted into the jail itself, and the jail manager comes out. She says, what's he here for? And they said 148A, which is obstruction, interfering with a police officer, resisting arrest, whatever. Very common and nonviolent. And she's like, well, we're not accepting those right now. And I was like, what? What'd you say? So I was in the car handcuffed, and they're like, now they're like whispering, like, okay, what are we gonna do? And you could hear the criminality of the whole thing. Dude, 20 minutes later, they dropped me off at Denny's after they'd already stolen my car, towed my car, and it's 8 o'clock. They had no charges on me at this point. And he gives me where my car is towed. And I said, dude, this is like 15 miles away, man. Can you just drop me off of my car? Oh, no, we can't do that. I said, all right. That's all right, man. Well, I was talking with him. He was a nice guy. But I said, Officer Robinette, the only crime committed tonight was you guys against me. You kidnapped me and you stole my car. The only victim tonight is me. I didn't cause any victim. You guys did. And so, everything got dropped. And so that was a kidnap. They didn't charge me. So that's another case that I'm getting some lawful, consultation on right now. But that guy, Robinette, he actually was thinking about some of the stuff I was talking about, because he was talking back and forth in the car. And he said to me, he's like, no, I'm gonna think about that. Because I said, officer, you don't want this life where people hate you. You want to protect life, liberty, and property. That's a real hero. I would respect you, and the community will respect you, as the Thick Red Line project is moving out too. So, and he's like, yeah, I'll think about that. So I might have planted a seed that, maybe it will germinate later. But the main thing is to respect the humanity of these people. The cops are not the enemy. It's the politicians. And so this is the conversation that every police officer, sheriff, military person, are you going to be on the side of the people or the politicians? Because if you choose the politicians, you're actually going to be harming your own kids and your own grandkids. The police don't want to enforce these laws. And they always say, I don't want to do this. It's my job. I'm just doing my job. And I don't make the laws. I just enforce them. So I say, okay. So what you're saying is that you're a victim of politicians. You don't want to do this, correct? Yes. And I'm a victim because I haven't violated anybody. There's no victim because there's no crime. So we're both victims. Victims should not fight victims. Victims should fight the enemy. And those are the politicians up there in the ivory towers making all this money while you're here in the front trenches facing real harm's way. And this is how you co-opt and recruit police in the freedom movement, according to the documentary How to Start a Revolution by Gene Sharp. Highly recommend that film. And this is what they did in Ukraine, Serbia, Kosovo, these other places, which the U.S. news doesn't report on. But this is a great film, and they document how you do that. So you have the women talk to the officers. You have the children bring flowers, the elderly, the veterans. You come up and say, hey, man, we're both victims. We should not be fighting each other. So this is why I'm so excited, because we've been doing maskless shopping at the farmers market the last couple of weeks, and I didn't promote that, or I didn't start it. It was the ladies who started it. So that one of the pregnant mothers we have in our community, a very sweet lady, she tries to go shopping and they won't let her shop without a mask. She's pregnant, and she shows them the order. They're not even interested in reading the order. It's like, if you can't breathe, a medical condition, the order doesn't apply to you. The managers don't care. The cops don't care. But it's different when a pregnant, beautiful woman is talking with you peacefully than if I'm doing it. So this is the kind of strategic advantage, psychological advantage, having young people, elderly women, ideally, where, dude, the cops, man, we want to help them realize you guys got to choose sides, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of history, because you are going to commit atrocities and you're going to have regrets your entire life. Yeah. So you got to really think about what you're doing. You're not a bad guy, but you're going to have to choose money and politics versus freedom and the people. And I don't wish that on anybody, but this is a job that you willingly and voluntarily selected. So get ready, man. The mandatory mask, you're worried about that? Dude, it's the tests and the vaccines, and that's where you guys are going to face lead. And I don't wish harm on anybody, but you start mandating that needle in somebody, dude, and they're going to be after you. So you cops really got to really understand where you are. And they're so, again, ignorant about history and these other things, because they don't want to be. They don't want the cops educated, but if they really did some education, they would realize where this is all headed, and it's not going to end good for them. However, it can, if they organize the Thick Red Line project, Thick Red Line movement, and start having real conversations in the open, and even maybe have some internal dissent against some of these sheriffs and other law enforcers who have sold their soul, for $300,000 or whatever they, whatever money they're getting. It's not worth the price of freedom for your kids or for your grandkids. We're supposed to make a better world so that the young people have more freedom, more prosperity, more abundance. And the technocrats have realized that the internet has exposed them, and now they're at risk, and now they're going full throttle for the human jugular of consciousness and love. And I'm so grateful that you guys are taking leadership to say no. As you said, that's the most powerful word. Say no. Do not cooperate with thugs. You are allowed to stay silent. You're allowed to not participate in your own slavery, and stand in your power, because it is truly supernatural. And that's what they're afraid of. And that's what people are awakening to, is, damn, I'm powerful. Yes, the power of one. That's another good movie. Watch that one, Power of One. 1992, I think that came out. But there's Power of Two, Power of Three. Find the common ground. I believe the common ground is freedom of choice, respecting self-ownership. And if you guys are down with that, then you guys are on the right side of history. And I'm grateful to spend some time with you guys. Look forward to chatting again, talking about freedom, and who knows what the future holds. But we got to build it, because we are the ones we are waiting for.
Yeah, brother. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you, man, and all the work you're doing, man. It's great to check out your videos and see where it's going, man. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man. Happy to come on anytime. Thanks, John, and Chill Will. And if people want to find me, I am on Facebook, but I'll be getting off there eventually. I'll probably get kicked off, because, if you speak too much truth, they throttle you in the algorithms, and then kick you. I've been banned. You can't post and you can't comment. It's like, okay, I see where this is going. So anyways, for the most part, you can find the homeschool group is Homeschool Leader on Facebook. There's a email newsletter you can get subscribed to, Voluntary Village Creators, and also JohnTaylorGatto.com. There's a free article there. If you have kids, you can get plugged in. And also Santa Cruz Voluntarists. Also, we have San Jose Voluntarists. We have Oakland Voluntarists, Marin County, Monterey. And if you have other friends, Arizona, Washington, Colorado, Pennsylvania, Florida, we're doing that as well. So maybe we'll start a Sacramento or a Brentwood, or, wherever you guys are at, because it's little by little. Last year we had, 20 members in the group. I was like, we got to do something local after Acapulco. And then this year we're over 300, because now people are like, man, we got to get together. It's like, this is getting intense. So
yeah, it's creating the ripple effect, right? The more you do, it just that frequency, that energy, just it expands out.
Correct. It is, man. We're vibrational beings, as Tesla said, in energy, frequency. And thanks for what you're doing up there, John and Will. So feel free to check me out. Anybody out there, also at the David James Rodriguez on Instagram, and you'll see some of the videos that I put up there. And pretty soon I'll have this texting platform, and then I'll be texting you guys directly. But I think we have to get on our own platforms. Instagram has these new terms and conditions, I think, have just come out. So they're like all up in your contacts now, all up in your text messages. And it's Facebook, which is Fedbook. So FYI, I'll be getting on my own platform. Also, I'm on Float. I don't know if you guys have heard of Float yet. It's
absolutely.
So the owner is a voluntarist who I got a lot of respect for, and I'm there at DJ Rodriguez. So FLOTE.app, and we can connect there. So just in case Facebook eliminates us. And guys, thanks for putting this on, and we'll have another conversation, I hope, and give you guys an update and find out what you guys are doing as well.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Will. And always remember, put something good in the air and plant something good in the earth. Peace.
Stay free, guys.